Story 1. This conversation happened at my grandmother's funeral. She sat down next to my aunt and me on the couch, holding her plate of food. She had this smug look, smirking at people as if she was better than them. Apparently, she had convinced herself that she'd be moving to another country with me, my partner, and our kids. With Grandma gone, she figured she no longer had any responsibilities, and since she was retired, she could live freely. She went around telling people that she'd be enjoying a lavish, retired lifestyle in a wealthy Scandinavian country without lifting a finger. She suddenly asked me loudly, "So, when does my flight leave?" Confused, I asked her what she meant, and she announced to everyone, "You know, our flight back to your husband's country, where I can live luxuriously like you promised me." I never promised her anything, except that I wouldn't talk to her again after I left. Being blunt and incapable of sugarcoating things, I told her straight up that it wasn't going to happen. I wasn't about to bring her toxic self around my children. Her face dropped, and it was priceless. My aunt and the rest of the room couldn't help but laugh. She must have thought she misunderstood, so I repeated myself, saying, "You're not moving in with me. You can get that idea out of your head because you're a dangerous, lazy, and greedy person, and I'm not exposing my kids to that kind of energy." She threw a fit, yelling about how she had every right to move in with me and be taken care of by the family. I argued back, telling her that unless she was willing to find her own place, get a job, learn a new language, and start working again, she wouldn't survive. I have children to care for, and I'm not taking time and energy away from them to cater to her selfish behavior. After that, she went completely silent and refused to speak to me for the rest of the evening. That was fine by me, and everyone else seemed to enjoy the moment, laughing at how ridiculous she was. Edit. I didn't expect this to get so much attention. The reason this took place at such an inappropriate time was because I was leaving the very next day. I wasn't staying with her, no way, so she had to confront me right then and there. Was I already upset with her before this happened? Absolutely. My grandmother had just passed away, and here she was, cheerfully talking about how she was going to leave it all behind and live a luxurious life, mooching off of us. She loves buying expensive, brand-name things, and I can't stand that kind of attitude. Why do I think she's dangerous? She would choose money over family any day. If it meant living a certain lifestyle, she would put money before protecting her family. I refuse to bring that kind of influence near my children. I didn't want to mention this, but she also enabled some serious abuse I went through as a kid. As long as she was getting money, she was okay with what was happening. Story 2. Hey, everyone. It's me again with another story about entitled people. This one is a bit sad, but it has a happy ending, so buckle up, folks. Last month, my 10-year-old niece, Ellie, and I were at a McDonald's. I had promised her a happy meal the next time she visited if she passed her spelling test. The day she came over, I opened the door to a beaming, joyful 10-year-old holding up her spelling test with a 100 inches written on it in red ink, along with a smiley face and the words, "Keep it up." I was so proud of her, especially considering how much effort she had put into practicing for that test. As promised, I took her to McDonald's, where she got her happy meal, and I ordered a double quarter pounder with cheese and bacon, along with a large fry. And before you judge me, I really love McDonald's. Anyway, about 5 minutes after we got our food, a homeless man walked in. Let's call him Rocco. Rocco was generally a pretty laid-back guy. He usually just sat alone on a park bench, never asking for money, only food. People in the neighborhood who knew Rocco liked him because he never caused any trouble. When he walked into McDonald's, I figured maybe his luck was finally turning. Rocco went up to the counter and placed an order: a bacon McDouble, small fries, and a small drink. But here's where things took a turn for the worse. After the employee took Rocco's order, he took Rocco's money, pocketed it, and then demanded Rocco leave. Rocco tried to protest, which he had every right to do, considering he had paid for his meal. But the employee wasn't having any of it. This upset Ellie, which I didn't notice until she tugged on my shirt and asked, Why are they kicking Mr. Rocco out? Did he do something wrong? Just as I was getting ready to answer her, the employee started up again, threatening to call the police if Rocco didn't leave. Rocco asked if he could at least get his money back before leaving, which seemed like a fair request. But the employee essentially told him to get lost. So, reluctantly, Rocco left and sat outside. I was just about to say something when another customer beat me to it, a middle-aged African-American woman, who appeared to be with her 2 kids, also concerned about Rocco. She walked up to the counter and asked the employee if he realized how much he had messed up. The employee shrugged, acting like it wasn't a big deal, and asked what she meant. She then explained that what he did was essentially theft. If someone pays for food but doesn't get it, and the employee refuses to give back the money, that's stealing. Since Rocco had paid for his meal and the employee pocketed the money and kicked him out, he had basically just robbed a homeless man. The employee tried to justify his actions, claiming he was saving Rocco from himself because, if given the money back, Rocco would just use it to buy drugs. The woman wasn't having it. She pointed out that if Rocco really wanted drugs, he wouldn't have come into McDonald's to buy a burger. What made the situation worse was that Rocco was known to be a straight-edged guy, and everyone in the neighborhood knew it, but apparently the employee didn't. Here's where the story gets interesting. It turns out the woman confronting the employee actually worked for corporate. When she revealed who she was, the color drained from the employee's face. By that time, Ellie and I had finished our meals and were on our way out the door. As we were leaving, we could hear the store manager and the corporate lady scolding the employee, calling him unprofessional and explaining how his actions didn't align with how McDonald's treats its customers. I didn't hear what happened after that until last week when I went in for lunch. As I walked in, I noticed a new employee at the register. I asked one of the other employees what had happened. From what they told me, the employee was forced to give Rocco his money back, along with his original order, and was then fired immediately. Fast forward to yesterday, I was on my way home from work when I ran into Rocco. He had a big smile on his face. I smiled back and asked how he was doing. He told me he had just had a job interview earlier that week as a dishwasher at a local bistro for $12 an hour. He said they hired him on the spot because of his personality, character, and how well he presented himself during the interview. I told him how happy I was for him and hoped things would continue to work out. We then went to McDonald's, shared a 20-piece chicken nugget, and went our separate ways. Story 3. I don't know where to ask this, but I feel like if I post this here, I will get a nuanced answer from people with experience dealing with entitled parents. If you have a better sub, I should ask this, and please LMK. Thank you in advance. I 19F have been dating my BF 19M for the past 4 years. I never felt comfortable coming to my parents and telling them that we are dating because when I first brought it up to my mother at 16, she said she was not comfortable with her 16-year-old daughter dating. She also thought I was dating him because other people were dating at the time and saw it as me jumping on a trend. Her exact words. Then prom came a year or so later and my mom got to meet him in person. We did not plan to coordinate outfits, we just went dressed as how we like. We enjoyed ourselves and had a great time. My BF even talked to my mom and said that she was really nice to him, and he felt hopeful that we might have a chance with my mom coming around to him. Instead, after she went home, she criticized his appearance and talked trash on him instead of saying something nice about him. Even my aunt had to tell her that it wasn't that serious and she was being too harsh. I found this out from my younger siblings after the fact, and my BF and I were crushed. Fast forward to a few months ago, where I finally worked up the courage to tell them that I am dating him. My father didn't say much. He just asked the basics about what he does and what he looks like. Whereas my mother didn't really ask much about him, but emphasized that I need to focus on my degree, I'm in uni now, and not focus too much on men and get distracted. The entire summer, they did not ask a thing about him, and my mom always asked how my friends were doing since I was young, so I thought he was just going to be an addition to her questions. Instead, she asked about my friends, even ones she never met, but nothing about my BF. By this point, my BF and I are planning on living together after college, talking about marriage, kids, how we would handle the bills, etc. So to see that they don't care about someone who is so deeply involved in my life up to this point just hurt me, and I decided to confront them about it. I asked my parents if they cared if I mentioned my BF to them, and my father said that he just was focused on my education, and that dating and school does not mix. I mentioned that we've been doing this for the past 4 years, and it's been working well. He didn't have anything to say. My mom did not want to get into it at the time, but we talked about it 2 days later. My mom said that she was not impressed with his line of work, and that he should be doing better. She asked me what he's doing to work on it, and I said he's trying, and he just needs time to figure out if he wants to go to college or stay in his line of work, because he doesn't have the support from his family financially like I'd offer reference he does warehouse work. She judged his family for not helping him like how they do, and that he needs to have some formal education. By this point, I didn't elaborate and just said things as plainly as I could because I didn't want to give her too much detail and information. I feel like it's our business and she doesn't need to know everything. My mom also said that she expected better of me. She asked me if I wasn't interested in anyone else, and I could look around and see if I truly want to settle down so young with my BF instead of finding someone better, because my feelings could change for him, and by then I'll be stuck with him. Her words. She even said that she raised me to be a certain way and expected me to have higher standards than be with someone like him. She assumed that I thought that I had low self-esteem and was settling with him because she believed that I felt like he was all I could get. Again, her actual words. I was shocked and felt disrespected even up till now. She asked me if I even knew how expensive things were, and I said yes, we've talked about living together after I'm done with school. She was shocked to hear that, like she couldn't fathom me moving out to live with my BF of 4 years. She was also shocked to hear that I was hanging out with him while I'm at school and inviting him to my place or going to his. She felt like I was being sneaky because I never told her of these things, and she thinks that I'm going to go behind her back and drop out because that's what my older sister did. Despite me explaining that I want my degree and he won't mooch off of me, she didn't believe me. She wrapped it up by saying that if he wants to be in my life, he needs to do better and actually get a career to provide for me, because times and things are tough and I don't need to struggle in life. I feel so aggravated and alone right now. My younger sibling, friend, and BF are on my side, but I just want to hear a nuanced answer to see if I'm in the wrong or if I'm misinterpreting something as well. I try to keep it as cut and dry as possible, which led to it being super long, and I still feel like I didn't cover everything. Thank you for reading this far and taking the time to comment. Story 4. Let me give you some background. I've been in a wheelchair for the past 5 years after a car accident left me paralyzed from the waist down. It hasn't been easy, but I've learned to adapt. I live alone in a small apartment, and once a month, I make a big grocery run to stock up on everything I need. On this particular day, I was feeling pretty good. The weather was nice, and I'd managed to find a good parking spot close to the store entrance. As I approached the ramp leading into the supermarket, I noticed a woman with a cart piled high with groceries heading towards it from the other direction. Now, this ramp is specifically designed for people with disabilities. It's wider than a regular ramp and has a gentler slope, making it easier for wheelchairs and mobility scooters to navigate. I was already halfway up when I saw her coming. I waved at her, trying to catch her attention. I called out to her, politely asking if she could wait a moment. She looked right at me, I swear, but instead of stopping, she just kept on coming. I couldn't believe it. I tried again, asking her to please wait as I was already on the ramp. She rudely told me to go back, refusing to wait. I explained that the ramp was for people with disabilities and pointed out another entrance nearby. She dismissively said she didn't care, insisting she had a lot of stuff and was in a hurry. She demanded I get out of her way. I was shocked. Who acts like this? I tried to reason with her one more time. I explained that I couldn't simply go back because I was in a wheelchair and that the ramp was there for people like me. She callously replied that it wasn't her problem and repeated that she was in a hurry. Before I could say anything else, she did something I never expected. She actually kicked my wheelchair. I felt it tip, and suddenly, I was falling. It happened so fast, I barely had time to react. The next thing I knew, I was on the ground, my wheelchair toppled over beside me. For a moment, everything was chaos. I heard people shouting, and someone ran over to help me. As I was trying to get my bearings, I saw a guy in a supermarket uniform grab the woman's cart. The employee firmly told the woman she wasn't going anywhere, stating he had witnessed what she did. The woman angrily demanded he let go of her cart, claiming she needed to get home. The employee informed her that the only place she was going was to talk to the police, and that he was calling them right away. As the employee was dealing with a woman, a couple of kind bystanders helped me back into my chair. I was shaken up, but thankfully not seriously hurt. Just a few scrapes and bruises, though my pride took quite a hit. The police arrived pretty quickly. They took statements from me, the supermarket employee, and a few witnesses who had seen the whole thing. The woman, let's just call her Karen, tried to play it off like it was an accident, but nobody was buying it. The police officer addressed Karen, informing her that multiple witnesses reported she deliberately pushed my wheelchair, which constituted assault. Karen tried to claim it was an accident and that I was in her way. The officer countered by mentioning that the security cameras would likely show otherwise. It turns out the supermarket had everything on video. When Karen realized she couldn't talk her way out of it, she started crying and playing the victim. But it was too late for that. I decided to press charges. I'm usually not one for confrontation, but this was too much. People need to understand that they can't treat others this way, especially those with disabilities. The aftermath was pretty satisfying, I have to admit. Karen was charged with assault and ended up with a hefty fine and community service. But the best part? She has to volunteer at a center for people with disabilities for 6 months. Maybe she'll learn something about empathy and consideration. As for me, the supermarket management was mortified by what happened. They've implemented new training for all their staff about assisting customers with disabilities and enforcing the proper use of the accessibility ramp. They even offered me a year of free grocery delivery as an apology, which I gladly accepted. This experience taught me that while there are entitled people out there who think the world revolves around them, there are also plenty of good folks willing to stand up for what's right. It's made me more willing to speak up, not just for myself, but for others who might face similar discrimination. So now, when I go to the supermarket, I hold my head high. And you know what? That ramp feels a little bit more like a victory every time I use it. Story 5. I decided to visit the local park. The pleasant weather and the promise of a peaceful day outdoors enticed me to grab a book and head out for some relaxation. Little did I know that this seemingly ordinary outing would turn into a bizarre encounter with an entitled individual. As I settled down on a bench beneath the shade of a tall oak tree, I noticed a commotion nearby. Curiosity got the better of me, and I glanced in that direction. A man, towering over everyone else, was berating a family for daring to sit at his picnic table. I couldn't help but be intrigued by his audacity. Before I delve into this extraordinary encounter, let me provide some insight into my own life. My name is Alex, a middle-aged artist who values kindness, fairness, and respect for others. I had grown up in a modest neighborhood, and my parents instilled in me the importance of treating everyone with empathy and understanding. Being an artist, I found solace in expressing my emotions through colors and shapes on canvas. It was a cathartic outlet for me and a way to connect with the world. I believed that art had the power to bridge gaps and bring people together. As I observed the unfolding scene at the park, the man's relentless tirade against the family grew louder. Determined to diffuse the tension, I decided to intervene and attempt to reason with the entitled individual. "Excuse me, sir," I said calmly, approaching him with caution. "This park belongs to everyone, and it's meant to be enjoyed by all. It's not fair to claim exclusive ownership of a picnic table." He turned his piercing gaze towards me, sizing me up with contempt. "Who are you to tell me what's fair? I've been coming to this park for years, and I've always had this table. Mind your own business." I took a deep breath, refusing to let his hostility deter me. "I understand that you have your preferences, but monopolizing a public space is not respectful. There are other empty tables available. It would be more considerate to share." His face flushed with anger as he clenched his fists. "How dare you lecture me? I demand respect. I've earned it." Despite his belligerence, I remained composed. Respect is something earned through actions, not demanded through entitlement. Your behavior here is causing distress to others, and it's not acceptable. The entitled man's rage escalated as he unleashed a torrent of insults towards me. He attempted to intimidate me by invading my personal space, but I stood my ground, refusing to back down. In an attempt to defuse the situation, a park ranger arrived, called by someone who had witnessed the commotion. The ranger, named Officer Johnson, assessed the situation and approached us with a calm yet authoritative demeanor. "What seems to be the problem here?" Officer Johnson asked, his eyes shifting between the enraged man and me. "This person," the entitled man sneered, pointing at me, "is trying to steal my table. I've always had it, and he needs to leave." Officer Johnson listened attentively to both sides, his expression neutral. He then turned to me and asked, "Is this true?" I explained the situation, emphasizing the importance of fairness and communal use of public spaces. Officer Johnson nodded, understanding the gravity of the matter. He then addressed the entitled man, reminding him that the park was for everyone to enjoy, and he couldn't claim ownership over any specific area. Frustration boiled over the entitled man's face as he failed to gain the support he desired. Enraged by his inability to control the situation, he suddenly lunged towards me, attempting to physically assault me. Instinctively, I stepped back, evading his attack. With my background in martial arts, I knew that physical confrontation was a last resort. Instead, I focused on defensive maneuvers, using his aggression against him. With a swift movement, I skillfully redirected his momentum, causing him to lose balance and tumble to the ground. The entitled man was left sprawled on his back, disoriented and humiliated. The parkgoers gasped in surprise, and some even chuckled at the sudden turn of events. Officer Johnson, having witnessed the man's aggressive behavior, promptly called for backup and detained him. It became evident that his sense of entitlement had far surpassed acceptable limits, leading to his downfall. As the entitled man was handcuffed and escorted away, the park regained its calmness. The family he had initially berated approached me, expressing their gratitude for standing up to him. They shared how his behavior had left them feeling humiliated and unwelcome. We engaged in a heartfelt conversation, discussing the importance of speaking out against entitlement and the significance of fostering a sense of community. Through this incident, we discovered a shared belief in the power of kindness and compassion to counteract entitled attitudes. In the end, the entitled man faced the consequences of his actions. His arrest served as a lesson to others about the repercussions of crossing the line between confidence and entitlement. The incident also reinforced the significance of standing up for what is right, even in the face of aggression. As I left the park that day, I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. The encounter had not only reaffirmed my own values, but also reminded me of the importance of empathy and respect in our interactions with others. I carried that newfound determination forward, continuing to make a positive impact within my community, one encounter at a time. Story 6. I'm 24 years old and a college student. I've worked in a bar for the last 2 years, and though it's a stable job, I still don't make enough to move out. I've had other higher-paying jobs, but my area is just too expensive. And, due to having moved to this state with my parents immediately after graduating high school and growing up a military kid constantly moving and struggling to ever keep contact with friends I did make because of it, I had no friends in the area that I could just move in with, and I have too much paranoia to live with strangers. I've just been living with my parents until I finish college, doing it online because my parents didn't want me having to live in a dorm and be away from them, which I should be graduating next year, and then hopefully move in with the only person I've managed to be so close with by then. We just live in separate states right now, so it's taking time. Anyways, my parents have always been very weird when it came to raising me and my older sister. There's a lot of instances, I have plenty of stories, but this one just annoys me most and causes me anxiety. My parents' house is big, but every room except the master bedroom is pretty small. My bedroom can only fit my bed, dresser, and TV stand comfortably. So my desk and computer and bookshelf plus my ferret and his big cage are in the bedroom next to mine that's used as an office for me instead. I'm 24, so obviously I love having some privacy, especially since I spent most of my life being heavily monitored and coddled by my parents, specifically my mom, because I was diagnosed with Asperger's at 4 plus, a bunch of other things that keep adding up as I see doctors. My sister actually told me she was a bit relieved about how little they ever paid attention to her because they were so focused on me. I was coddled so much by my mother that I am only now learning things like cooking or doing laundry, which she still keeps me from doing because it has to be done this way, not this way. And when I ask for help, she gets mad and tells me to figure it out myself. Anyways, rambling all this to say our mom still hovers and overwhelms me with how on top of me she is. But the worst of it is probably the fact she will let herself into my bedroom or office whenever she wants, most of the time without announcement. Reminder, I'm an adult, I'm also a fab, and, again, an adult, though my parents don't believe I do things like that because I'm their baby who never seems interested and acts disgusted. But I act that way to keep my dad from making jokes and comments about me. So besides existing, I also do adult things in my private time. Obviously, I'll lock the door, but does that stop her? Absolutely not. So, even if I'm in my office playing video games, I'll keep one end of the headphones off at all times so I can listen out for her moving around nearby. I won't have anything to hide, but my anxiety will go through the roof. Besides that, because of my dad, I hate anyone coming up or sneaking up behind me without my knowing. And she insists on my computer facing the door, so my back is to the door. So I lock my door to prevent people doing that. Like any human being, I also lock my door when I'm changing in my bedroom. And what does my mom do? She finds my door is locked, unlocks it, and lets herself in. There was this one time, for example, where I was in my bedroom in the middle of changing. I am literally completely topless, tits to the wind, when I didn't hear her approach my door. All I hear suddenly is the sound of my doorknob, the lock being switched from the outside, and then the door being thrusted open. And what did I do? I body slammed the door shut and nearly hurt her doing it. I don't know what it is, but even if it's my mom, who insisted on bathing me until I was nearly 14, the thought of anyone seeing me in any state of undress, even if it's just in my underwear, feels disgusting and makes me panicky. So I'm not joking when I say I was hyperventilating when I slammed into the door to shut it, and was quickly trying to dress. While I'm doing that, my mom is shoving into the door trying to force it open, yelling to let her in, and that she wanted to tell me to do something. I told her no, that I'm changing and she can't come in. She gave up getting in, mostly because I'm a fairly strong person despite never working out unless you count picking up tables and kegs at work for fun exercise lol. I just like picking up heavy things to see if I can. When I finally let her in, after changing, she's huffing and mad with me, demanding to know why I wouldn't let her in. I repeated that I was changing, and she said, "So? I'm your mother, I made that ass so I can look at it." I ignored that and said my door was locked, and that she shouldn't just be letting herself in and unlocking my door. She responds with, "I can do what I want, it's my house. If I want in your room, then I'll come into your room. I can unlock your door if I want. What if there was an emergency? What if you were dying? What if I was dying?" I said, "I don't care. I'm an adult. This is my private space. You do not just let yourself in whenever you want. I don't disrespect you and let myself into your room and unlock your door. Don't do it to me." She just got mad and ran off. forgetting what she was going to tell me to do. Edit. Thank you for all the replies giving advice and reassuring me. I will look into a door stopper. I just worry about her reactions, since just a few years ago a bad experience with my dad and locked doors that left me sobbing and in a panic attack on the bathroom floor while he pounded the door until it nearly broke, calling me a lot of things. So I get a lot of anxiety about my parents' reactions to being unable to get to me. I'll definitely try to get a stopper when I get paid next. I'm making this edit to answer and add some things that I guess might need to be mentioned. I don't pay rent, they want me to, and were going to have me start last year, until my insurance skyrocketed, and so it's been harder for me to keep any money saved up. It may be some time before I can fully move out due to money and the situation with my best friend, but I've been planning to pursue my master's after I finish my bachelor's, at a school less than an hour away that's close to my work and requires freshmen to live on campus. The original plan was getting an internship out of state for a month or so to get practice being more independent, but I didn't get accepted to my choices, so I'm relying on pursuing a master's now for a good excuse for them to allow me to live away from them. I'm not a legal dependent. Back in 2018, a month before my 18th birthday and right after I graduated high school, my parents insisted we get me an attorney and open a case to make me their dependent. I didn't want to. I knew it meant I'd have to stay forever, that I'd be stuck at home. I said I didn't want to do that, but they insisted it was for my own good and to help me. When we met my attorney, they didn't allow me to get a word in for the first 30 minutes with him. He made them wait in the other room, so he could be able to speak with me, and I told him I didn't want this. He asked about me, lots of questions. Finally, when the hearing occurred, my mother broke down sobbing and telling everyone in the room that I needed it, that I was going to die in a ditch somewhere, her exact words, that they just want to help me. The attempt to make me a dependent was denied, as my attorney found me perfectly capable and happily wanting to be independent, and thought it unnecessary to make me into a dependent. My sister and I used to speak of me living with her, but because of a medical situation with my nephew and with other family situations going on, my uncle is living with her and my bill to help with the kids and house. After it being so long, I'm not sure the full name and contact of my old therapist anymore, only a last name. I don't even know the address of her office, as my parents didn't allow me to learn how to drive until I was 22. I may try to speak with our doctor about referrals, as I know the address at least. I'm just hoping I can find a day off or can find an in-person therapist, as I tried digital and was getting nowhere with the lack of privacy to speak with someone. My bank account is heavily monitored by my mother, and she sees everything I do with it. I've been looking into opening a private account. I just worry about a new card coming in since she goes through all of our mail and I work often. Edit 2. Sorry, another edit. But I forgot to add some things that I think I mentioned in the comments, but forgot to add since I was going into work. Warning, because I do mention suicide. There have been many occasions where, when I'll get especially stressed from being busy with work and school and vent about it, my parents have insisted I just quit my job and focus on school, and they'll take care of me and my bills. I could just stay home and only do school. They stopped recently only because I told them to their faces that if I had to be home and not work, I'd go crazy like that and kill myself. Dramatic? Yes, incredibly so, but it's true. Some of the hardest times of my depression were when I was out of a job and trapped at home. Constantly turns out it's probably a mixture of depression and bipolar. We didn't find out I was bipolar until last year when I first spoke with our most recent doctor. And I did attempt but failed. Not that they noticed, just thought I was acting tired and told me to lay down. A somewhat minor thing, I think. But when I drive places, I have to let my mom know where I'm going. And if she says no, then I can't go. Same with trips, and she makes sure I'm going where I said by tracking me. The one time I turned it off, she called me freaking out.